out on the seafront again at night. I just walked past the last street light. So now the only light is a great big yellow moon, a few stars, and the faint light of a few ships anchored off the coast. I don't have anything in particular to say. I just came out for a walk. I had most of today free, and I wanted to record a podcast, but every time I sat down and began, I looked at my notes that I jotted down, and they just seemed so obvious, so trite, so already been said 1,000 times before, more eloquently than I'd jotted down. And so I thought, what's the point? I think it's just a dry spell. I think all things move in cycles, because when I was gearing up to start podcasting, I had more ideas than I could put down. They were coming thick and fast. And I'm sure that cycle will come around again. And in the meantime, I'll try not to become impatient and to try and force something that doesn't want to happen. I was scrolling through Substack and I read a post that said something like, Substack is full of posts that tell other people how to create posts. It's like a self-feeding echo chamber, going round and round in circles. Maybe there is a bit of that, but I think there's more to it than that. But there was a point to be had there, I think. Writing about creating content is not as satisfying to consume as actual content. Reading when someone actually has something to say and it's interesting. And what do any of us have to say that's worth listening to? We're each thrust into an infinite space with no memory of who we are or how we came to be there. The space is infinitely diverse and ever-changing. Even the past is changing. So we're in a fluid universe where the forms and the rules that govern those forms are forever changing. And the majority of that universe is invisible. But you can just sense some of it on the periphery of your senses. Intuition, gut feeling, seeing glimpses of things which aren't fully there, feeling the presence of others, and we're expected somehow to navigate, to discover who we are, why we're there, where we are. Maybe we're not expected to. Maybe it's understood that we're all perpetually going to be baffled by the complexity of it all. I suppose you just have to learn to live with not knowing everything, not understanding everything, existing with 99.9% of your existence being a mystery, and being okay with that. And focusing on the one tiny slither of reality that you can see and touch and have any effect upon, and have any hope of understanding. I suppose my dilemma, and a dilemma of, I'm sure, many others, is the missing piece of the puzzle. The spiritual gurus and spiritual formulas tell us to follow our bliss, to engage in our highest passion, but they don't tell us how to find our passion, to find our bliss. They miss that fundamental part of the equation out, the tricky bit, and only give you the easy part of the formula. And so I was thinking about that today. How to figure out what your passion is, what your bliss is. If you consider it like a detective, you might say, what are your skills and what are your passions? And if, like most people, you're quite good at several different things, you're quite interested in several different fields of study, but you're not brilliant at any one thing, and you're not obsessed with any one thing, and so you're left with multiple different directions that you could go off and explore. But you've only got one lifetime. You've only got a set number of years. And so if you're going to commit your time and your energy, it can be a bit like a gamble. Like putting all of your chips on one square on a roulette table. Unless you can find some way of narrowing things down. I suppose there's the trial and error method. You look at your skill set and you try things out. Try hobbies out, activities out, projects in those areas where you have some skill, in those areas where you have some interest. I suppose you could call it a brute force technique. You keep throwing mud at the wall until some of it sticks. And the secret there is to just keep at it. And if one of those things that you're interested in is podcasting or YouTubing, and you don't have any immediate success, you don't have any immediate breakthroughs, you don't go viral, you run out of inspiration, and yet you have to keep at it, to give it a proper go, to find out for certain if that is or isn't your thing, to push on through the dry spell. And that means posting maybe when you've got nothing worth saying, and being okay with that, not beating yourself up about it, trusting that profundity, meaning, inspiration will arrive when they're good and ready. And until then, you just keep putting one foot in front of the other. Keep plodding on. Keep buggering on. Perhaps you need faith, perseverance and faith. And if nothing comes of it, is it the end of the world? No. It just means you spent X amount of time trying something, but I don't think you can say it was wasted time. I don't think you can say anything in life is a mistake when we learn from everything we do and grow as a result of every experience we live through. Perhaps it will help us to find out what we are supposed to be doing by finding what we're not supposed to be doing. The process of elimination. I've come to the end of the walk, the end of the path. It always feels a bit sad, in the middle of a state of flow, not with the talking, but with the walking. There's something very meditative about walking in a peaceful place, not crowded by people. No social, psychic pressures. I'm tempted to walk on the boulders, to sit down on a little patch of ground that I can see just beyond them. Problem is, they're very slimy, algae, but I've made it to a little patch of ground. There's a flat boulder made of granite with millions of little sparkling crystals reflecting my torchlight. And there's a big cliff above me, and I can hear stones tumbling down it. And I suppose if there was a landfall, I'd probably get crushed. Which is an eerie feeling when you just heard a bunch of stones rolling down it. So maybe this isn't a relaxing spot to take a little rest and pontificate. It was a nice idea, but I don't think I could really relax under an overhang. I live in a part of the world where it's known for its landslips. Our roads form cracks, slumps occur, houses have dropped off the edge of the cliff, and cars, and so I don't have too much confidence sitting at the bottom of a cliff at night in the dark. I probably wouldn't get discovered for some time, so I'll stick to the cliff path. I've noticed that there's a prevailing wind. Whenever I walk back, the wind's always in my face. On the first leg of the journey, it's always on my back, which will probably make the audio unlistenable. But I think the audio is probably unlistenable anyway, based on the content. Maybe if I just keep at it, there will eventually be a breakthrough. And until there is, I'll just experiment with multiple different formats, multiple different subjects, until something starts to flow. Sometimes I write things down, I script a podcast, and sometimes I just talk. I'm not sure which is my style, my format, but I'll just keep doing both until one starts to take over. It's funny how powerful emotions can suddenly wash over you, because I'm never quite sure whether they come from inside you or outside you, or perhaps it's both. I'm certainly in a time of transition, a time of reassessment, a time of going into a cocoon and dissolving into a homogeneous liquid form, to be reconfigured into some new shape. And when you're in that in-between state, you can feel a bit adrift, a bit lost. All the familiar landmarks are gone. The familiar patterns break down into chaos. I think it's ultimately a positive thing, but it can feel unsettling. I suppose the trick is to settle into the not knowing, to settle into the chaos, to see it as yet more mystery, more of the unknown. I think it's just our mind that struggles to understand, to comprehend, to contain the universe within its understanding. It strives to control. And the beginning of control is understanding, I suppose. Yet, it's trying to control the uncontrollable. So what happens then? It struggles and it frets and it flounders. So we need to switch it off and allow our intuition to guide us forward. Trust in the intuition, for that comes from a higher place, a higher part of ourselves that does understand, that does know. Worry less, trust more. Think less, feel more. Accept everything, especially that which is outside of your control and outside your ability to comprehend, and flow with whatever is. Reduce tension, reduce resistance, and what is left will be you in equilibrium. Accept that failure is a possibility. Success is a possibility. Attached to neither. Ultimately, maybe they really don't matter. Maybe there are lessons to be learned by taking both paths. I was thinking about the Hindu Yuga cycles. The Golden Age, the Silver Age, the Bronze Age, and the sometimes called Dark Age, sometimes called Iron Age. I think we're supposedly in the last of these ages, the Dark Age, before it cycles back round again. And a part of us, a part of me, wonders why we can't be in a Golden Age. But if we were in a Golden Age, which to my mind would be Greco-Roman architecture or Atlantean architecture, pillars, paved stone walkways, colonnades, squares, marble statues, amphitheatres, libraries, gardens, parks, trees, grass, ruled over by a wise philosopher king, benevolent and ultimately compassionate. There's no need for killing, there's no war. We don't need to eat. We absorb sunlight for sustenance. In that kind of world, what would we do? Would we paint, sculpt, write poetry, compose music, create new buildings, breathtakingly beautiful? Everything's kind of already perfect. There are beautiful paintings everywhere. Would we really be motivated to do that? Maybe we would. Or maybe we would take it all for granted. Maybe we would become somewhat apathetic. Maybe we would not realize the beauty that we had, having nothing else to compare it to. So perhaps it's like the golden age is a time for the soul to heal, to rest, to be at peace. But it can't stay in that state perpetually, because there'd be no impulse to grow, to learn, to change. There would be no opportunity to develop sympathy, empathy, charity, because everyone was healthy and had all their needs provided for. So perhaps we need the challenges, the struggles, the pain, not only to grow as a soul, but to appreciate its opposite, which means if these cycles are true, that the pendulum swings from golden age to dark age and back again, perhaps it must be that way for the universe to operate. Otherwise it would just wind down. It would enter a state of entropy where everything degrades. And if that is true, then rather than lamenting this difficult dark age, we should step back and see the bigger picture. See the fact that this materialistic time, where everything seems upside down, where corruption is rife, is ultimately in our interest to experience. And if we know it's only temporary, perhaps it's easier to bear. Perhaps if we see all of these struggles and strife and problems and pain as challenges that are there for our growth, it will take the sting out of it a bit. In fact, might it be possible to enjoy yourself, to find peace amidst the chaos, to create a little bubble like a golden age in the ocean of a dark age?